Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good. And we love talking about food, making sure that you're well fed and taken care of. We're talking Four Top Hospitality and all their different restaurants. They're City Current partners too, so we're going to have some fun with this. We're joined by their Director of Marketing, Ali Buchanan. Ali, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing very well. So
Good.
Let's have some fun. Let's tease everyone as much as we can through a radio show, and even for those that are watching online with some food and flavors and everything. But give us a little background. Let's start with a little bit of history and some context.
Absolutely. So our first restaurant opened in 1987 in Ridgeland, Mississippi. That's Amerigo Italian restaurant, which people that have lived in Nashville for a long time will recognize that name. Been in Nashville for over 30 years now. So we started in Ridgeland with the Amerigo location. In 2001, we opened Char Steakhouse in Jackson, Mississippi. Those are kind of our two core concepts that we've continued to grow over the years. So our roots do go back to further down south. Over the years, we've expanded across the Southeast. Now we have locations in Memphis, the Middle Tennessee area, both Nashville and Brentwood, as well as Huntsville, Alabama is the newest market that we've emerged into. So, we have grown to 13 restaurants now across the Southeast. 6 of those are in the Middle Tennessee area.
Go ahead and tease us with those 6. So what are the 6
Yes.
in the Middle Tennessee area?
So we have 2 Amerigo Italian restaurants, one on West End Avenue and one in the Cool Springs area. We have Char Steakhouse, which is in the Vertus building in Green Hills. We have Etch, which is downtown, etc. The sister restaurant in Green Hills. And our newest concept is Jasper's, which is right next door to Amerigo on West End Avenue.
Talk about, there's a piece of this where you get to kind of have some culture, some sharing, some benchmarking. So there's things that on a broad level you can do. At the same time, though, obviously each one has its own individual culture, flavors, restaurant menu, the whole 9 yards. So talk about kind of that best of both worlds, the blend of being able to share across the spectrum at the same time, keeping the individualized differentiation.
Absolutely. So that's one thing that we're actually really proud of is both Amerigo and Char have the same core menus. So some of the most beloved dishes at Amerigo, 5-layer lasagna, 3-cheese tortellini, those yummy, gooey cheese fritters. Those are going to be on every menu at every location. Each location does kind of focus with dealing with local farmers and purveyors to do some seasonal dishes, as well as using some local products. So, for example, in Nashville, we're proud to use Noble Springs for some of their goat cheese products. We use Lake Farm catfish down in Mississippi. So we do have some items that are going to differ between the different locations so that we can kind of focus on what does each location's, who can we, what purveyors and farmers can we support in those different locations? So you're going to see most of the same dishes across the locations, but again, some of those are going to have some different items. Same with Char. Again, most of the core items are going to be there, but there's some things. And we also look at trends and what do the people in the different markets want and what's, maybe what people in Nashville want might be a little bit different than down in Huntsville or in Jackson, Mississippi. So we pay attention to that. We listen to that. We can tweak our menus pretty quickly. So if something's not working or we try a dish, it's like, well, that didn't work so well in this market, then we can kind of, go a different direction pretty quickly. Etch and etc. That's those two concepts are a little different. Those are done by Chef Deb Paquette. She is, if anyone's familiar with her, just the most exquisite creative cuisine. So there's not a ton of crossover there. The menus do change quite a bit. So those are kind of outliers, but to speak to what you were saying, the Amerigo and Char locations do have a lot of crossover with just a couple differences here and there based on the market that they're in.
Give us a little bit. You don't necessarily have, you can do it as your favorites or top sellers either way. So I'll give you, a lot of flexibility on this, but give us a little bit of just the top sellers or your personal favorites or some of the fan favorites at each of the different restaurants.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot of crossover in my favorites versus most popular dishes. I'll start with Amerigo. The cheese fritters, I would say hands down, most popular appetizer that we've got. When it comes to pastas and entrees, 3-cheese tortellini, you can't beat it. It's the ultimate comfort food. It's cheesy, it's gooey, it's warm, it's It's amazing. So I'd say the tortellini when you're really wanting some good comfort food. The chicken acudo is actually one of our lighter dishes. That's really popular. It's one of my personal favorites as well. Comes with black bean salsa, green beans, and flame grilled artichokes. So it's going to be on the lighter side than some of our other dishes. And then the tiramisu. I mean, you can't beat the Amerigo tiramisu. It's not a traditional tiramisu. I think it's better. I'm a little biased, but people love it. At Char, crab cakes at every location, it's going to be the top seller. They're amazing. They're no filler crab cakes, so it's just really meaty, good crab goodness. And then of course the fillet. You know, that's kind of a no brainer there. I personally like the sea bass at Char. Again, it's going to be on a little bit of the lighter side. Comes with a nice bok choy, kind of sesame sauce, so it's going to be a little lighter than some of our heavier entrees as well. And then the pecan pie. We make that fresh in house. It's also amazing. At Etch, the cauliflower. I mean, that's that's one of the very few dishes that has been on the menu since day one. She does change everything out pretty frequently. Any dessert that our pastry chef Megan Williams makes is a 10 out of 10. So I can't pick just one. And then over at Jasper's, we've got a lot of really, we have some new entrees that we just came out with. I personally love the flatbread pizzas. We've got a Mexican street corn pizza, one called the Betsy with goat cheese on it. That's really nice. And then there's a really nice power bowl that we have at Jasper. So again, kind of looking for the comfort food and the lighter items, depending on what kind of mood you're in. But the power bowl is really nice. It's going to be something that's a little bit lighter with quinoa, greens, edamame, cherry tomatoes, something to really fuel you up to get through the day. And then if you want to splurge, Megan Williams does the desserts at Jasper's as well. So she makes all of her ice creams from scratch. She's got these killer ice cream sandwiches that are just, I cannot walk through the pastry kitchen without trying whatever they're making back there. So tons of good food at all of our restaurants for sure.
Yeah, I was saying you're making me so hungry, and I'm like you, like everything you're listening. I was like, oh yes, I love the crab cakes. I love the
Yeah.
the sea bass is also good. So,
Yep.
when you look at the pandemic and going through the pandemic, obviously very, very difficult on restaurants. And so, talk about how you and your team have been able to manage through the pandemic, come out on the other side, thrive. Talk about kind of the pivots on your end.
Absolutely. No doubt it was very challenging for us. But it was really neat to see everybody come together and just figure it out. We threw a lot of different things at the wall to see what would stick. The needs of our guests, the needs of our employees was changing daily, and with all the different mandates that were given to restaurants, there was a lot of pivoting. I know that word is a bit overused at this point, but it truly was just a lot of pivoting. So, we did restaurants that didn't typically do to go. So Deb's restaurants, we didn't do takeout prior to the pandemic. We did start doing it then. If you've ever eaten at one of Deb's restaurants, you know how many accoutrements and sauces are with each dish. So just think about how many ramekins we had to. that was a little bit challenging to box up her cuisine and still make it look as pretty as it is. But then we started doing some really cool stuff too. So we essentially turned the kitchen in my home into a production facility, for lack of better words. And we did a lot of chef demos and chef dinners where we put together meal kits that people could come pick up at the restaurant and then watch along with either a live or a pre-recorded video. We also took that opportunity to do some improvements to the restaurants. So rather than hire outside of the company, we used our own team. We said, hey, who's good at filming? We had a sales manager that had a background in film and editing, so he was able to do our virtual events. We had a lot of staff members that knew how to do basic construction and painting. So we gave a lot of our restaurants a much needed kind of refresh during that time. And that allowed us to keep our managers on salary. So we're really proud of that and really excited that we were able to, even when some of the restaurants were closed, we were able to pull that management team and say, hey, we could really use you to paint Jasper's or redo the tables at Amerigo in Cool Springs. And so that was really cool. Some other things, didn't work so well. I had the idea to do a drive-through kind of to-go pickup line, since we have that great big lot, next to Amerigo and what was Saltine. It didn't take off, but hey, we tried it. We did cookie making kits. So our pastry chef Megan put together these kits for Valentine's Day, and people could pick them up and roll out the cookie dough with her and bake them and do the sprinkles and the decorating. And I mean, we tried a little bit of everything. And again, some things worked, some didn't, but in the end, it was just really cool to see everybody come together and get really creative on figuring out, just what do our guests need and how do we meet them where they're at.
I like too, as a leadership lesson, the fact that you turned inward and said, look,
Yeah.
we don't want to have to lay anyone off or make
Mm-hmm.
what are you good at? What can we do together?
Mm-hmm.
And let's, revamp and renovate and put everybody to use and edit over here. So, I mean, I love the fact that you really turned inward and allowed your team to shine, but that obviously
Mm-hmm.
kept everybody moving forward, which is great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Talk about culture, because a big part of this, when you talk about the restaurant industry, is how do you maintain strong customer service, leadership,
Mm-hmm.
culture? So how does that take place and manifest in the restaurants?
Sure. Well, going back to pre-pandemic, back to when we opened in the late 80s, we've always focused a lot at promoting from within. And that starts with the front and the back of the house. So even our owners started by waiting tables together when they were 18 in Jackson, Mississippi. So we take a lot of pride in promoting those people that work hard for us. It gives a lot of people that management experience, but it also creates a lot of career growth opportunities so that when we hire people, that's a huge selling point for us. Like, hey, we don't hire bartenders, for example, typically from outside the company. They start as a server and then they get promoted. A good portion of our management team is the same way. They got promoted into management. Again, I always like using the examples of our owners. They started by waiting tables. Now they own the company. And so that also gives us that in and of itself creates a culture, because it's people that have worked together in all different facets of the restaurant. That really manifests into good leadership as well, because if you're leading a team of servers and dishwashers and cooks, and you've been in that position before, that gives you a really good vantage point. And I think that's really important. And again, that's something that we're really proud of. And then going back, up until to the pandemic, I mean, just how creative and how hard everyone worked together for a common goal was just really neat. And I think, I see friendships that have really, grown stronger in our restaurants just because of that experience alone. So I think you take those two things, and then when meshed together, it does create a good culture, because we've got employees that have been with us for over 20 years that have really moved up the ranks. And it's important for people to know that, we are a tight knit family. We've got, gosh, I just did a story yesterday on 4 of our employees are siblings, and they all started as either dishwashers or line cooks, and now they're on our executive team. So it's just those kinds of stories are just really neat to see, and just how close everyone works together. It just makes a big difference, knowing that that there is that much growth. And then the other thing that we're really proud to announce is that we're an employee-owned company. So that in and of itself is more opportunity. It creates a great a sense of ownership for our employees with the company, that literal ownership that I think sometimes you don't get if that weren't there. So
yeah, that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
What does community service mean to Four Top Hospitality? So being engaged in the community, what does that mean to your company?
Absolutely. So it's really important for our restaurants to help as many local organizations as possible. Over the years, a big way that we've helped is just by different organizations fundraising events. So whether we're donating food or silent auction items, we like to do it for as many organizations as possible. Unfortunately, we can't do them for all. But that's important for us to support those people, our neighbors in our local community. We also have a great partnership with the select few organizations in different markets. So here in Nashville, Deb Paquette's restaurants partner a lot with Second Harvest Food Bank. That's kind of our main fundraiser that we work with. For several years, Deb partnered with the Taste of the NFL organization, which takes a chef from each city where there's an NFL team, partners it with the local food bank, and it's a year-long fundraiser. And then it culminates into a big food and wine event the night before the Super Bowl. So we donated $1 from every roasted cauliflower that we sold throughout the year. to this organization. And then at the event, we got to present a check. So each year was anywhere between $15,000 and $20,000 that we would donate to. It would 100% of that would go back to Second Harvest. So that's a big one that we do. We also have presence at a lot of different community events. That's whether it be for Boys and Girls Club or wherever it may be. It's a good opportunity for us to connect with people in the community, but also to support a great cause. There's so many organizations in each of our markets that we don't like to just hone in on one, because again, we kind of want to spread the love and help as many as we can. So
yeah, well, you do a lot, that's for sure. Wrap up with contact information. So I don't know if you want to list off all the different individual websites, but where can we go to learn more about Four Top Hospitality and then all the different restaurants?
Absolutely. The easiest thing is just going to go to fourtophospitality.com. It's going to have all of our concepts there. You can choose which one you want to find out more on. Just click on the logo of the restaurants. Each location has Instagram and Facebook as well.
Well, Ali, thank you for all you and your amazing team do. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.